Howdy everybody, from Montreal, Quebec. This is Sergey with some questions and answers. I got a letter here from one of the viewers who wants to do heavy haul, and he's asking me about different things related to heavy haul, and I thought I would do a video answer or answers in case somebody else might be curious about the same thing. So question number one is, what is the wheelbase of your tractor? My previous one was 236 inches, which was too short. It's okay for regular trucking, but for heavy haul I went with a 244 inches, but I'm in Canada. But with a small sleeper it was more than enough. You see, I still have a room here for the lift axle, and I don't regret not getting a longer wheelbase, because in my case it's not required. Now for Canada, you can they canceled the old rule. You can still go longer, but they do limit the overall length of the rig, you know, like the truck and trailer. So like my trailer is 53 feet long, and that's why I went with 244. Otherwise I would need to get it's possible to get a permit. That's his last part of this question is, can I buy a trip permit? I believe you can. It's just that you will have to do that pretty much. You'll have to have like an annual permit. Okay? All right, question number two is, so basically, yeah, but just to add something, in lots of situations you go to an area where you don't have enough room, you know. So the shorter your truck is, the better it is for tight spots, you know. Like even here, I'm at a truck stop, and if my truck was much longer, it would make it so much harder for me, you know, to even back into a parking spot. Now the tires I'm running, his next question was, what tires are you running? I'm running 11R 22.5s on my drives, and the pusher axle is 275/70R 22.5, and I basically matched the tire size from my trailer on advice of one experienced trucker. Because something happens, I can, you know, if I have a flat tire on the trailer, I can take this one and put on the trailer. And on my steers, because I have a 14,600 pound axle, I have 12R 22.5, so it's 1 inch wider than normal. 12R 22.5. And one thing I would do different maybe now, I would try to get a stronger front axle. Maybe just go another inch, you know, because there's always a lot of pressure on the front axle. I can, when I'm driving, especially when I'm stopping with a heavy load, I often feel like all kinds of noises in the front axle, you know, on the suspension. It's because the engine is here, so it's very difficult for the front. Next question is about the chains, size and length. Like all chains I have are 1/2 inch. Otherwise they're either too weak or too heavy. And I have two types. I have short ones, which are about between around 6 and 7 feet, and then I have what I call long ones, which are about 10 feet or close to 11. And so I got a bunch of these, and that's all you need pretty much. And then I got all my binders are 1/2 inch. One thing I recommend besides the chains and binders is this. It comes very useful. I got 4 of these, probably like 3 sets in different sizes, because sometimes you have nowhere to hook up your chain to, and this comes in very handy. And of course you need your, you know, flags and signs. And here's my exhaust pipe cover. It's too windy outside, and I didn't want to use my external mic. Too much hassle. So to continue with the questions, do you prefer the leased owner-operator more than being a carrier with your own authority? So basically, is it better to be totally independent? Well, that depends, you know, where you're located, what kind of big customers are, and how easy it is for you to find customers. I'm in Canada, so one thing here is that's different from US is that insurance is pretty expensive. And so I work for a small company where I'm paid percentage and they pay insurance. And for me that works better than being totally independent. And of course you don't have to chase the money, you know. So it depends. It's I know some guys that swear by being independent, and then I know a bunch of guys, I talk to many people that tried it and went back to being an owner operator. You can, if you're American, I understand this guy is from Florida, so you can try, you know, the BCO, you know, owner operator with Landstar. In my opinion, that's the company I'm familiar with, because I drove for them for 4 years. But they're very strict, you know, safety wise, and as some person said, they will nickel and dime you to death. You have to pay for everything, including sending your paperwork to the office. You have to pay for that, which to me makes no sense whatsoever. But you get paid percentage, you get good fuel rebates, but if there's no freight, that's it, you're stuck. You cannot haul loads for other people. Or with the same Landstar example, you can be an approved carrier and have your own authority, and then if Landstar doesn't have loads, you can go and find loads for somebody else, right? Would you go ahead and buy a 55-ton trailer with a 4th axle tag or booster? Well, my trailer is prepped for the 4th axle, and I was thinking about that, but the 4th axle, you know, it's extra 2,000 pounds you have to carry all the time with you. And my truck and trailer are already at 47,400 pounds empty. And so you don't want to be, you know, heavier than you already are. And I saw a bunch of videos of one guy, this Maverick, trying to back into a tight spot in here. This is such a small truck stop, you know. And this morning they were painting repainting those yellow lines, and they were asking all trucks to move. So I was parked further down there, and then here was already painted, so I moved in here. So now I'm sitting right next to the road. It's not gonna be very comfortable at night. It's too much noise, too much traffic. Anyway, so I was researching this, and I saw a bunch of videos from one guy who does the same stuff as I do in the States, and he bought a 4th axle, and he was saying that, you know, he was kind of like sorry that he spent money on that he should have bought, you know, like a booster or a Jeep, because you don't get a lot of credit in terms of weight for that 4th axle, you know. You should, you know, look into rules for various jurisdictions, but you will see that 4 axles, it's just the ratio between, you know, the price and the weight credit is not very good. So it might be, but of course it's much cheaper than getting a booster or a spreader. But in all fairness, I have no experience with any of those, right? I just have a 7 axle truck. I mean So 4-axle truck, 3-axle trailer, that's what I know. But sometimes I do wish there's like instances, when I'm really close on the legal weight, like factory weight on my trailer. So a 4th axle would help, just to lessen the toll on the equipment. So sometimes it can be helpful, but then you start carrying it around, because then what if you don't bring it with you? You leave it at home in your parking area, and then they have a load where that axle would make a difference. So I think I lost a few loads, but because I couldn't haul heavy, but it was like real heavy, like 100,000 pounds, 110,000 pounds. Or I lost loads because they were too tall, for example. I think the height of the trailer is more important, for example, at least for me. But to continue, why not a drop side rail design? It would make life easier with height. Yeah, that's true. Drop rail design, I actually looked at that, and the Kaufman, the manufacturer of my trailer, they offer this design. It's not the lowest in the industry, but still I think you can get like the same 55 ton that mine is 24 inches at the top of the deck off the ground. Drop rail would put it, I think, like 17 inches. But the thing is that, yeah, it's great for machinery, and if you're only gonna do machinery, then drop rail, especially heavy machinery like big excavators, right? And like I mentioned before, I lost a few loads where I was too tall, but with the drop rail design, you will be losing a bunch of loads as well, like some crates and boxes and stuff like that, because some people will not allow you to use the blockage, like dunnage, to make the surface of the trailer level. Like you will only be dealing with machinery and equipment, and that's not always the freight that you can find. Again, it depends. If you live somewhere where there always machinery and equipment, yeah, that's great, and that I love that. I love doing machinery and equipment. But the truth of the matter is that for everyday life situations like trucking, general freight, where you don't have a dedicated account, it helps when you have a level surface. And actually, one thing I would have changed now, even though it would make the trailer a bit heavier, I would get the full deck covered, because quite a few times the customer wanted me to top the bottom, because I have the trailer in the middle open, like in winter, which is kind of like ridiculous, but you got to do that. And then other times, having that 36-inch gap in the middle made it difficult to load. Let's say I had those concrete panels, and they had to, when they put a bunch of dunnage under those panels. So really, I would just get 100% cover, at least on the main deck. That's what I would do, at least for me, for my loads. I'm not sure about my carrier. I think they're more looking for company drivers, not owner operators. He's asking me about opportunities of my company. I try to from a friend of mine, I called them about this guy, and they said they were more interested in company drivers. Would you buy a new glider to get around the DEF issues? Well, I never had any DEF issues. Well, a couple of times I got some weird message on the screen saying that the DPF has to be serviced, and I went to my Mac dealer and they said that's kind of strange. That's probably just like a glitch, because I told them my engine only has 2,000 hours, and they said that the DPF, that filter, has to be usually serviced after 5,000 hours, right? And I don't do that many miles. So, but yeah, you have to buy, the fluid, right? The DEF fluid every second fill up. So that's an extra $20-30. And where I live in Canada, gliders, as far as I understand, they are illegal, because the chassis must match the year of the engine. So you don't see any gliders here. But in the States, I don't know, it's just that they all say you're not gonna save it, it's actually gonna be more expensive than, so I don't know. Like sooner or later I think they're gonna ban them. I wouldn't worry too much about it, because now you have before you had to buy this DEF in jugs, which was very expensive, but now pretty much all truck stops, they have DEF right at the pump. I don't see it as a big deal, and plus it does make the world we live in does make it a bit cleaner. So anything you regret about heavy haul? I regret that you never have the perfect trailer, because everybody's so different, all the shippers and brokers, and you get one trailer, and then, like in my case, right, then I get a load where I wish I would have the drop rail deck. Then I wish I would get fourth axle. Then I wish I would be lighter and maybe just bought a 35-ton trailer, which is of course much lighter, but then you cannot do like loads that I do, So that's the thing, that no trailer is perfect for all situations. So you miss loads no matter what trailer you have, That's one thing about heavy haul. So unless you have a dedicated account, like a dedicated customer, where you can build a trailer specifically for that kind of freight, it's always like hit and miss, I have a 389 being spec'd with a 280 wheelbase, 4 axle, 280 wheelbase. All right. Well, here's a typical example, right? So here's a truck stop, right? Like a real life example. Montreal, Quebec, very busy, no truck stops anywhere. Your dispatch says, go to the eastern part of town and find some parking. So I don't know how you would be parking here with a 280-inch wheelbase and let's say a 53-foot, lowboy trailer. That's what I meant before when I said that. I think it's, I understand, the comfort of the longer wheelbase and the pride of ownership. A Pete would look great like that, but you also have to take into consideration, the practical aspects of maneuvering that juggernaut in real life scenarios, such as like this small truck stop, for example. Or I once went to a shipper north of Toronto, and even with my truck, 244-inch wheelbase, but because I have such a long wheelbase on the trailer, I had trouble backing in the door, And then a guy, another driver from our company, came with a company truck, and it was a set forward axle, right, instead of set back axle like on my truck. And he had much more trouble than me. So, in general, I really like the set back axle. That's what I started driving. The trucks I started driving with, they were all set back, not the classic set forward design. And I find that, for example, in my case, so 244 wheelbase, right? And the spacing between the drive axle is the same as between the pusher axle and the front drive axle. So it's like a tridem, right? And when I put my fifth wheel forward, like when I move my truck all the way back, right? So my fifth wheel is in the front. It's actually the way we spec'd. Okay, let me show you guys. Yeah, you see the way we spec'd, that slider, this is the forward utmost position. It's right in the middle of my front drive axle, right? When it's here, it's between these. So when I need my pusher axle, I always move it like this, and it's perfect. Like the weight is distributed very nicely between the drives, the pusher axle, and the steer axle, you know. And you may run into some weight distribution issues with a truck that has a set forward axle, especially with such a big wheelbase. I just don't think it's practical, you know. I think a set back axle makes more sense to me. And last question. I don't need much money to live on, but I don't want to kill myself. Is heavy haul the most lucrative route to be in trucking? Well, that's been my plan to work less, drive fewer miles and make more money. I probably do make a bit more money than with my previous 3-axle step deck, but I also find that I sit a lot. I do more empty miles, you know. So it's hard to say. Again, this depends a lot on where you live. I know one guy lives somewhere in Midwest US, and he just has a 53, I think, flatbed trail, and he does oversized loads. And then I remember one guy at Landstar I talked to. He had a cab over, and I saw Landstar on the door, right? So, and I came over and we started chatting, because he had a very unusual trailer that you hardly see in the States. He had a 4-axle flatbed. 4-axle flatbed. You see them all the time here in Canada, because we're not limited at 80,000 pounds like in the States. So the more axles you have here, the better. So this guy, I started talking to him, and he's been with Landstar for, I don't know, he said like 15-20 years. And he said he tried everything. Step decks, low profile step decks, my kind of trailer, low boy, double drop, stretch, and he finally settled on multi-axle flatbed, And he said that's what he found works for him. But he's American, just like this viewer that sent me the questions. And he just found his niche, And he says there's only a few of us, like at the trucks. He says we know each other, and brokers, agents just call us quite often. He can do like one load and make a bunch of money. So, but that's heavy haul, yeah, because he's hauling heavy and oversized. So I think that's where the money is. But the question is what kind of trailer, because you can do heavy haul and oversized with all kinds of trailers, right? So you have to decide for yourself, do your research, and find what trailer in your area would make the most money. Maybe talk to some shippers, brokers, drivers. You gotta do your research. It all depends on the area where you plan to operate. So those are my answers. Sorry for the long-winded video, but I know lots of guys are interested in this, so I thought this would shed some light on these issues with heavy haul. But again, so no type of trucking is perfect. Sometimes you make money with dry van. Sometimes you make more money with a dry van trailer than with a trailer like mine. So it's not even the area. Sometimes it's all seasonal. Like in winter, I was making pretty much nil, and I wish that I maybe kept like a step deck trailer, or even just got a cheap flat. I don't know. But then you'd be tarping and driving 20,000 miles a month. So it's not easy. It's all relative. So you gotta do your research, for your particular situation, for your particular area. So thanks for watching. I'm SERGEI DRATCHEV, somewhere near Montreal, Quebec. Je ne parle français. That's all I know. Oui, merci, señor. Wait, that's Spanish.